My bones had been pinned down by a soul-suppressing pearl for 13 years, and my spirit had grown so bored it was about to dissipate. Then I met the true daughter of the Marquis, the one they had kicked out. She lay down on my grave, tears streaming from her eyes. I want to die, and you want to live. Let's trade. I never thought that as a wisp of a ghost, I could still be seen. I certainly never thought the one who could see me would be the long-lost daughter of the Marquis. Half a year ago, when the Marquis's family was bringing her back to their estate, they passed by my little plot of land. The carriage stopped under the peach tree that my corpse had nourished, and an impatient old maid, clutching her rear, dashed into the bushes to relieve herself. Someone else got out of the carriage. It was Sarah, the daughter they had just found. When her small, palm-sized face met my gaze, it instantly turned deathly pale. I didn't die a pretty death. That bastard, Empress Catherine's brother, had gouged out my eyes. My hands, once so skilled with a blade, were hacked off and tossed into the fish pond in the mansion's backyard. With my bones nailed down in this mass grave, I was bored to tears. I spent my days hanging upside down from the crooked peach tree, swinging back and forth. A ghostly wind blew, and my bloody head swung right in front of Sarah. Her big, dark eyes went wide. An invisible trickle of my blood dripped onto her. I bared my fangs and blew a puff of air in her face. Let me get a whiff of your rations, and I'll spare your life. She fumbled around for a while, her hands shaking, before finally offering up 2 cold, hard buns. I was deeply disappointed. Are you trying to feed a beggar? I want to smell something good. Like that. My long tongue shot out, pointing toward the pork jerky the servants and the driver were eating nearby. She followed my gaze, then her face flushed with embarrassment. Her fan-like eyelashes drooped, and her voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. I haven't been formally accepted by the family yet. The family doesn't support idle hands. I brought my own food. My 3-foot-long tongue paused, then slowly retracted. The Marquis's family was so wealthy that the scraps they threw to the dogs were better than the buns in her hand. More than a decade ago, I saw the girl they raised instead at a palace banquet. She was decked out in gold and jade, looking like a little angel, nearly as grand as a royal princess. Back then, the Marquis's wife would even shed tears in public when she mentioned her lost daughter. It's the comfort of the one I have now that keeps me from feeling like every day is a year. But in just over 10 years, she had neglected her own flesh and blood to this extent. The unloved one. They couldn't even be bothered to send someone important to bring her home. I was just sighing about the coldness of the world from my perch on the treetop, but it was enough to soften Sarah's heart. Here. She bravely asked the driver for a half-eaten piece of jerky, held it up, and timidly kept her head down. Don't cry. I figured out a way for you. I froze, only then realizing that blood was streaming from my empty eye sockets again. I'm not. Crack. Before I could finish, the old maid's discipline stick swung through my head and struck Sarah's hand. A young lady must behave like a young lady. The Marquis's house is a noble family. How could you eat scraps begged from others? A single piece of jerky has brought shame upon the entire household. You're base and despicable. You must be punished. The jerky fell to the ground, covered in dust. The servants and the driver stomped on it, then stood on either side of the old maid, sneering. Look at her. Even the maids in the young Mrs. Courtyard have better manners. And she calls herself a lady. If it weren't for the marriage alliance, you think anyone would want her back? The Marquis and his wife went to see her 5 years ago, but left her there, because she was an illiterate embarrassment. Putting on airs like a lady. She should look at where she came from. An orphan who grew up cleaning toilets will never wash away that stench. Sarah clutched her sleeves, so ashamed she couldn't even lift her head. But the 3 of them grew more pleased with themselves, their words a torrent of insults and mockery. The constant thwack of the old maid's stick and the gloating laughter of the driver and servant were so loud. It reminded me of the days when I used to kill people. Have you ever seen a human swing? Sarah, her eyes full of tears, looked up stunned. You're about to. My tongue shot out, wrapped around the old maid, and yanked her up into the peach tree. A fork in the branches clamped around her neck. I blew a breath of air, and she started swinging, kicking and sputtering. Want to go faster? Sarah was frozen in shock. The old maid was choking, on the verge of death. The driver and the servant screamed and ran over to help. I let out a wicked laugh. Want to see a human pinwheel? The driver and the servant were snatched up by the branches and sent spinning violently. They shrieked hysterically, piss and shit flying everywhere. Crying for their mothers and fathers, their eyes rolled back in their heads. The little girl, through her fear, started to laugh. An incense sticks time later, the 3 unconscious bodies were lying neatly on the ground. They all soiled themselves. So who's looking glamorous now? Sarah and I held the jerky and feasted. What's your name? When I get back to the capital, I'll save up some money to have rites performed for your soul. My name was not something she should touch. Besides, my soul couldn't be saved. I've been struck by a soul-suppressing pearl. Don't waste your energy. Besides, I didn't tell her that my soul was about to scatter completely. Just tell them they were attacked by a ghost. Looking like this, they'll be too scared to say anything else themselves. I swung myself back up into the tree. Live well. After all, living is the one thing I want most. To live, and to send those bastards to hell. She paused for a moment. You like the smell of meat? I'll come visit you next time and bring you a roast chicken. She swore she'd bring me a roast chicken, but after she left, half a year passed without a word. I know about the soul-suppressing pearl. To be free, it requires a life for a life. I went to the Grand Temple to get a talisman. If you just nod, I'll give my life to you. A clap of thunder lit up Sarah's pale face. Unlike the vibrant girl from 6 months ago, her breath was now a faint thread. She had collapsed under my peach tree, completely out of strength. I didn't forget you. I just couldn't get out. Don't be mad that I didn't bring the roast chicken. See, even at death's door, I was still thinking of you. She just wanted to die. She could have done it anywhere. But it was a 30-mile journey from the capital to this place. She must have walked the entire night through the mud. Who pushed you to this? The Yin family? She smiled, a resolute look on her face, which was streaked with a mix of rain and tears. The next moment, a sharp dagger sliced across her wrist. It was the world. It was me being stupid and weak, not as good as everyone else. This is my fate. Blood gushed out, staining the damp talisman she had hidden in her clothes and making it glow with a golden light. Come here. Come and hold me. You're the only one who ever protected me. Oh, you don't have hands. Then I'll hold you. No matter how much I wanted to save her, it was all in vain. I want to die, you want to live. Let's trade. I'm begging you. When a person wants to die, no one can save them. She tore the wound deeper. The rain washed her blood down over my entire skeleton, staining it crimson. Life is already so hard. Don't let me die with regrets. At least, if you live on, someone will remember me, right? Her soul began to drift out of her body, growing fainter and fainter, until she was hanging on by a single thread. I moved closer to her. What do you wish for? I'll do it for you. I'll do anything. She smiled and held me tight. She buried her face deep into my chest. You have to live a good life, and I'll be reborn into a better family. We both win. Did we? Unless I dragged everyone down to hell with me, it was a wasted death. That night, a forgotten true daughter of the Marquis died, and a vengeful demon was resurrected in a mass grave. The peach tree withered overnight. I took Sarah's body and walked down the mountain. I don't know about the next life, but in this one, I would have my revenge. Blood for blood. Before returning to the capital, I paid a visit to the Grand Temple. There, an Empress Dowager spent her life as a vegetarian, praying for her son's soul. She never liked me. The time she punished me by making me kneel, I lost my 8-month-old child. But now, after I told her the truth about how her son really died, she couldn't wait to jump on my pirate ship, to stir up a storm with me and fight our way back into the Forbidden City. With our deal struck, I returned to the Marquis's estate on the day of his other daughter's coming-of-age party. The hall was filled with joy. Everyone crowded around the fake daughter, Claire, showering her with priceless jewels and treasures as if they were free. They all congratulated her on becoming a woman, reminding her to be careful with her words and actions, so as not to ruin her future. She was the picture of success, surrounded by flowers and praise. No one remembered that today was also Sarah's birthday. The Marquis's wife pulled the charming fake daughter into her arms, a dozen large boxes stacked neatly in front of her. This was from your grandmother's dowry. I only got it myself after your brother was born. I'm not giving it to anyone else, only to my darling Claire." Claire pouted, burying her face in her mother's embrace with a smile that was both innocent and cunning. "I knew it, mother loves me best. Claire loves you so much." The Marquis's heir, Leo, walked up with a gentle smile, presenting his own treasure. Brother doesn't have a family heirloom like mother's, but this 5-colored agate was a gift from the emperor himself. Brother had to beg Prince Connor for it, so its meaning is quite different. Prince Connor? The 4th one. Yes, that's him. Heh, what an unexpected surprise. The Marquis, sitting in the seat of honor, proudly stroked his beard. Father's gift isn't bad either. I shamelessly asked the emperor, and he has agreed to arrange your marriage to Prince Connor after your ceremony. My little Pearl's wish will finally come true. Claire's eyes lit up instantly, but she didn't forget to stomp her foot at the Marquis. Daddy, you're so embarrassing, saying things like that in front of everyone. I'm not talking to you anymore. The crowd burst into laughter, their words dripping with honey. Only my body still carried the raw, painful wounds of Sarah's memory. A cold wind blew, chilling me to the bone, and I couldn't help but shiver. You still know how to be shy? I thought you were shameless by now. Brother, you're so mean. Mother, tell him off. All right, I'll scold him right now. Leo, don't bully your sister. As punishment, you'll take her shopping tomorrow, and you have to pay for everything. Leo groaned dramatically. Mother, that's just cruel. You know my private funds have all been spent on this little glutton. Claire stuck out her tongue and made a face. Serves you right, neener. What about me? My voice cut through the roaring laughter, a jarring note that ruined the mood. I stepped out from the shadows. What do I get? The laughter died instantly. Every face was etched with the annoyance of having their good time spoiled. Leo shot me a cold glare. So you decided to come back? I thought you had more backbone than that. Couldn't make it on your own, so you came crawling back with your tail between your legs. Do you have any idea how worried Claire was because you ran away? She couldn't eat or sleep for days. Daring to elope with someone, you truly have no shame. You've disgraced the entire family. Claire, who had been startled by my return, quickly masked a flash of hatred. Biting her lip, her innocent eyes welled with tears as she tugged on Leo's sleeve, her voice trembling with grievance. Brother, don't say that. I'm not mad at sister anymore. Even though she threw me out of the house and I almost died, after all, I've enjoyed the family's wealth for so many years. I'm content. I'm sure she was just misled into eloping. She must know she was wrong now. Then she looked at me, her expression one of genuine concern. Since you're back, sister, I think I should return everything of yours to you. But sister, you left without a word and made father and mother worry sick. Don't forget to apologize to them. The Marquis's wife shot me a venomous glare and sneered. I wouldn't dare accept. The last time you apologized to her, you pushed her into the water. If you apologize to me, I might just end up as a corpse myself. Besides, I only have one daughter, and that's you, Claire. Don't insult me by comparing her to others. Claire blinked her big, troubled eyes at me. Sister, hurry up and admit you were wrong. Seeing my lack of reaction, the Marquis roared. Get on your knees. I didn't move a muscle, but my body instinctively recoiled with a wave of sadness and pain. That was Sarah. Her soul was gone, but her body still grieved. Looking them straight in the eye, I gave them one last chance. Everything she has, shouldn't I have it too? You think you're worthy of being compared to Claire? Leo was furious. You country bumpkin, with no manners. You've embarrassed this family time and time again. If Claire hadn't protected you, you'd have died 10,000 times over. Elope with someone. Who told you that? Claire, maintaining an innocent and naive facade, walked towards me step by step. Don't be afraid, sister, she said as she moved. Now that you're back, your family will clean up your mess. That letter, I've already destroyed it for you. As long as you apologize to father and mother, you'll still be the young miss of this house, and our family can be happy and harmonious again. Look at your sister. Even now, she's still speaking up for you. And yet you're so ungrateful, framing her again and again. It's my fault for favoring her, but tell me yourself, in what way are you better than her? Your mother is right. If you weren't my own flesh and blood, I would have thrown you, this piece of mud, out to the countryside long ago. Father and mother are just too soft-hearted. A menace like her doesn't deserve to be part of the Inn family. Don't talk like that, you'll hurt her feelings. Claire wrapped her arm around mine intimately. Her gaze darkened, and her sharp nails dug into my skin. Isn't that right, sister? Hiss. She was ready for me to shove her away in pain, ready to theatrically fall to the ground. But I didn't even flinch. Frozen in place, she bit her lip in frustration and hissed at me under her breath. So you've learned a thing or two. Good for you. You cheap trash. Why didn't you just die out there? This pathetic little trick was enough to drive Sarah to her death? I couldn't help but feel a grim sense of amusement. So, you're the one who started the rumor about me eloping with someone? A flash of disdain crossed her eyes, but her face was a mask of pure victimhood. Sister, are you blaming me? I didn't mean to. Crack. I casually dislocated her jaw. As long as you admit it, that's all that matters. No need to say more. It happened so fast that by the time she was clutching her jaw, whimpering and groaning, the others finally reacted. In an instant, they all swarmed towards me, ready to take me down. But her nanny, leading the charge, was sent flying with a kick that shattered her femur before she even got close. She collapsed on the ground, only able to howl in agony. At the same time, I pressed a dagger to Claire's neck, having already sealed her pressure points. Move and she dies. Perhaps my tone was too light, making them think I didn't have the guts. They actually started to move forward again. Slice. With a flick of my wrist, a long gash opened on Claire's cheek, blood pouring down her face. Ah, it hurts. Father, mother, brother, it hurts so much. I'm disfigured. I scream again. She didn't dare. I sliced off her ear, the bloody appendage dropping to the floor before I stomped on it. The arrogant defiance from moments ago was replaced by a face full of terror and submission. I forced them all to retreat behind the marquee, then stepped on the writhing nanny. Tell me, who threw your mistress out of this house, and how did she end up in the water? The nanny was sweating profusely from the pain, but her mouth was still hard. Even if you kill me, young miss, I can only tell the truth. It was you. You couldn't stand the second miss. And when you failed to kill her, you threw her out. The second miss was almost abducted by criminals. She still has a scar on her leg from it. So she was a tough one. Interesting. Just as I lifted my foot, the Marquis's wife screamed. You rebellious daughter. Are you trying to defy the heavens? If you want gifts, I'll give them to you. But if you dare harm my Claire, I will never acknowledge you. And I will never want you for the rest of my life. She was so noisy. Sarah, you really went through it. Rip. I tore the earring from Claire's remaining good ear and flung it, striking the Marchioness's ornate headdress. One ear was now a gaping hole. The other, a self-important matriarch, was now disheveled and pale, all her dignity gone. Next time, I'll aim for your eyes. They're useless anyway if you can't see the truth. The Marchioness collapsed to the floor in terror, not daring to speak another word. The others, having witnessed my methods, didn't dare make a move either. I gave you a chance. You didn't take it, so you can't blame me. The tip of my dagger rested on the nanny's wrist. With a swift flick, I severed her tendon. Still not going to tell the truth? She didn't dare answer, just screamed uncontrollably. I rubbed my ringing ears, then drove the knife straight into her lung, intentionally twisting the handle. It wouldn't kill her, but the pain would be worse than death. The blood that flowed out formed a small river, shocking the others into stillness. In the years I fought alongside Julian, I learned many methods of torture in the dungeons while gathering intelligence for him. Using them on a backyard maid today seemed like overkill. But a method isn't about being high or low class, it's about being effective. Sure enough, after just 2 stabs, the nanny pissed her pants in agony. Just as she was about to speak, Leo cried out. What do you want? We'll give it to you. Do you want Claire's courtyard or formal recognition, or the marriage to Prince Connor? Put down the knife and we can talk. Don't cause a death. If you do, even I won't be able to help you. He rambled on, interrupting my interrogation. A nameless fire shot through me. You come here. I'll tell you what I want. He hesitated, but Claire's tearful gaze pushed him forward. You. Before the knife he had hidden behind his back could emerge, I grabbed him by the throat and delivered a dozen slaps across his face. I threw him to the ground, where he coughed up a mouthful of blood and teeth before passing out, the hidden knife clattering beside him. That's what you get for talking too much, you worthless idiot. The Marquis met my smiling eyes, trembling with hatred, but for the sake of his children, he had to swallow his anger. Gritting his teeth, he commanded, "Listen to her. No one moves." I gave him a satisfied smirk and patted the nanny's face with my cold dagger. Well, she wasn't tough anymore. The truth about all the abuse and persecution Sarah had suffered came pouring out like beans from a sack. The young miss from the countryside was never liked by her family to begin with. On her very first day back, she was locked in the smallest courtyard to learn her manners just for making the fake daughter cry. Later, she was accused of breaking the fake daughter's imperially gifted jewelry, of setting fire to her own courtyard in a fit of rage, and even of pushing the fake daughter into a lake out of jealousy over Prince Connor's affections. Finally, she was accused of using her status as the true daughter to drive the fake one out of the house. If the family hadn't found the fake daughter in time, she would have been ruined by bandits. A tiny, fingernail-sized scar on the fake daughter's leg was enough for the entire family to drive the true daughter out to teach her a lesson. But then, they claimed, she ran off with a lover in a fit of anger. It was all the second Miss's orders, the nanny confessed. She couldn't stand being second to the young miss just because of blood ties, so she wanted the young miss dead. From the very beginning, it was all the second Miss's scheming. The young miss never did a single bad thing. When the young miss was locked in the ancestral hall, the second miss offered to bring her meals, but never brought a single one. For a whole month, the young miss survived on leftover soup from the servants. The birthday gift the young miss prepared for the mistress was a safety pouch she sewed herself, stitch by stitch. It wasn't that lump of dirt the second miss swapped it with. The master's cold medicine was also brewed by the young miss, who watched the stove herself. But she was stopped before she could enter the study, and the second miss added laxatives to it and framed her. The young miss truly only glanced at the young master's painting, she never touched it. It was the second miss who used her free access to the study to destroy it herself. Confined, forced to kneel in the ancestral hall, beaten, and finally driven from her home to fend for herself. Sarah had suffered so much in her own home. She who had never known love, returned to her family full of hope. Instead, she found that the love she yearned for was being enjoyed by someone else. And her own flesh and blood, who should have loved and protected her, gave her nothing but overwhelming hatred and malice. Betrayed, despised, even persecuted and driven out by her own family. How helpless she must have felt. I sighed and continued my questioning. And what about the elopement? The nanny trembled with fear. The young miss never eloped with anyone. When the master and mistress threw her out of the house because the second miss had run away, wanting to teach her how hard life is for a woman without family protection, the second miss had already paid off bandits to rape and kill her in the outskirts of the capital. As for that letter, it was written by Blanche, of course. She's an expert at forgery. When I locked eyes with Blanche in the crowd, she looked terrified. Before I even raised my dagger, she fell to her knees before me, corroborating every word the nanny had said. She even added many more details. Finally, she bowed frantically, her head hitting the floor like a hammer. The second miss forced me. We're just servants. How could we dare to disobey? I beg for your life, young miss. Please spare me. See, when you're the one holding the knife, everyone bows down to you. Sarah, all you were missing was a blade. Claire's guilt was all but sealed. Take Claire away and subject her to severe punishment. Who dares? The family servant I had intentionally let go had returned with a furious Prince Connor. How should I put it? He was nowhere near as smart as Julian. He didn't even inherit a third of his mother's looks. As a child he had a certain charm, but now, every part of him was just obnoxious. You still have the nerve to look at me, Sarah? You are utterly vile. Cradling the almost broken Claire, and surrounded by his guards, he yelled at me relentlessly, gravely injuring a court official's daughter and my fiancée, Sarah. I think you've lost your mind and are looking for a death wish. Men, seize this wicked wretch and take her to the high court for severe punishment. Oh, arresting their daughter in their own home? Did you ask for their permission? Even knowing the full truth, Even knowing everything Sarah had suffered, the entire family remained silent as Prince Connor attacked their own pathetic daughter and sister. A daughter's suffering was nothing compared to the family's wealth and future. Sarah, they weren't worth it. I gave them their chance. Now they would reap what they sowed. The prince laughed, his arrogant posture reminding me so much of him. If I say you are not the daughter of the family, who would dare say you are? The Marquis lowered his gaze, acting as if it had nothing to do with him. The Marchioness mumbled for a moment before closing her mouth. Only Leo, covered in injuries, spoke with vicious hatred. Kill her. I only have one sister, and it's Claire. Prince Connor gave me a C. No one will protect you. Look, gazing down at me. You think you can marry me by injuring Claire? Dream on. Now that the family has disowned you, I will make you wish you were dead as penance for what you did to Claire. If you know what's good for you, kill yourself in front of her. If you do, I might graciously leave you with an intact corpse. I took a sharp breath. So Prince Connor, in order to play the hero, you would ignore the truth and sentence me to death, disregarding the law? He sneered, replying with disdain. What do you mean? Claire schemed against you. All that happened was you went on a mad killing spree in the Marquis's house. Claire was only trying to stop your rampage, and you disfigured her. Lorden tried to persuade you to be good, and you knocked out his teeth. That is the only truth. The fact that he could twist the truth so brazenly in public put my mind at ease. Seeing my strange smile, he waved his hand. Men, take her to the High Court. Tell the Chief Justice to interrogate her mercilessly, according to my version of events. I'm afraid, Your Highness, that I am unable to comply. The Chief Justice of the High Court emerged from the shadows. Unfortunately for the prince, he was on my side. I smiled, a smile as cold as ice. So sorry, but I'm investigating this case under imperial orders. Everyone present who has twisted the truth in an attempt to have me killed will be thrown into the dungeons. You're good. Using my own sword to kill my own son. Emperor Julian, having left the fourth prince kneeling outside his study, came to question why I had to drag his son into my quest for vengeance. The Julian of today was much calmer, a stark contrast to the sharp, profound, and ruthless man he once was. He used to be uncompromising, but now, for the sake of peace in the court and his harem, he just wanted to smooth things over endlessly. I wasn't satisfied. So I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes to the sun, and didn't even spare him a glance. At an impasse, he reached out and brushed my cheek. This temper of yours is becoming more and more like hers. The emperor had been visiting the Empress Dowager at the Grand Temple, when he saw and fell in love with a new consort, Anya. That was me. Consort Anya. A consort named as if she were the one he was thinking of. How ridiculous. I had become my own replacement. After all, no one would ever suspect that the Sarah of today was actually Julian's long-dead first love, Chuchio. I could imitate myself as perfectly as I wanted. So when I knocked him off his horse with my sword, planted my foot on his shoulder blade, and was about to snap his neck, he saw the ghost of an old acquaintance in my blade and in my eyes. He wanted to make me, this defiant woman, his consort Anya. My condition was that he had to kill the fake daughter for me, to avenge me. He no longer had his old ruthlessness, and was unwilling to meddle in his minister's private affairs. He only assigned the Chief Justice of the High Court and the head eunuch, Li, to me. Whether the wicked would be brought to justice depended entirely on my own methods. Desperate times call for desperate measures. The 18-year-old Julian had said that himself. So I chose bloody, torturous interrogation. With the Chief Justice present, the evidence was irrefutable. They all confessed. But then the fourth prince had to jump in, a knight in shining armor for his damsel, and nearly made me the one to die unjustly. Julian wanted to protect his son, but I insisted on my pound of flesh. We were at a stalemate. He almost died of illness as a child. The Empress dotes on him too much, and it spoiled him rotten. He's a great disappointment to me. I sneered. Just a disappointment, and that's it? Julian's face clouded with displeasure. I met his gaze without flinching. My playful, yet aggressive and provocative demeanor was, as he had once told Chuchio, the very thing he loved most about her. He backed down under that look, and was about to speak. Her Majesty the Empress arrives. My eyes lit up. Catherine. It's been a long time. The whole reason I went to the trouble of taking down the fourth prince was to give you this little welcoming gift. She still carried herself with the same virtuous and dignified air of a noblewoman. Only the corner of her eye twitched when she saw me and my sword. But she walked straight past me and knelt before Julian. The fourth prince is young and was misled and framed by deceitful people. That's why he lost his head and did such a foolish thing. I have failed in my duty as empress to raise a clear-headed son. I am to blame. I offer to remove my crown and enter the cold palace to accept my punishment. Her lady-in-waiting hurriedly knelt beside her. Your Majesty is not well. You were only just able to get out of bed to come and offer this apology. Your Highness, please forgive her. The Empress cannot enter the cold palace. If the Empress were implicated, the very foundation of the dynasty would be shaken. Not to mention, the powerful Jiang clan, who had served for 3 generations, would not stand for it. The court would undoubtedly descend into chaos again. And Julian hated nothing more than the endless arguments of the old men in his court. Catherine, just like when she was young, loved to take the indirect approach. But she was dreaming. Doesn't the lady-in-waiting have a little too much to say? Since when do you have a voice in the emperor's presence? Both the maid Zhao and the empress turned pale. I, however, shot Julian a look. You should get me a spokesperson too. From now on, they can say all the unpleasant things. And I'll only say what you want to hear. Good deal, right? The Empress's good cop bad cop routine was exposed, and her dignified smile froze on her face. The talkative maid was dragged out by Eunuch Li. As the sound of slapping echoed, Catherine's face turned to ice. Her hateful glare swept over me, but I paid it no mind, kicking Julian's leg under the table. Who's the deceitful person? Me? Or is it that fake daughter who deserves to die? If he wasn't willing to punish his son, then he could punish the fake daughter. A compromise was better for everyone. Julian understood my concession, and his dark expression instantly thawed like spring snow. You are my beloved consort. If you are a deceitful person, wouldn't that make me a foolish ruler? The Empress means that the infamily's daughter is vicious and cruel. She used my son and even tried to kill my beloved consort. Her crimes are unforgivable. I will sentence her to. Father, you can't. A smirk curved my lips. The idiot has arrived. Prince Connor, who had been kneeling outside in the courtyard as penance, burst into my private chambers the moment he heard Claire was to be punished. So undisciplined, so utterly foolish. He walked right into my trap. Insolence. Catherine delivered a sharp slap across the prince's face. If I don't punish you severely, who knows how badly you'll be deceived by that wicked woman. She was an impostor who deceived the throne to begin with, and she nearly cost consort Anya her life. A cup of poison is a dignified end for her. The emperor had spared his son by making Claire the scapegoat. The empress was naturally happy to go along with it, using Claire's life to save her own son. But the ungrateful prince actually dropped to his knees. Mother, my feelings for Claire are true. She is pure and good, not an evil person. He glanced at me, his voice softening. She was just framed. Now her face is ruined. She's so pitiful. Mother, as the empress, you should stand up for a helpless woman like her. Julian closed his eyes, deeply disappointed. Catherine was so furious, she looked like she might faint on the spot. I decided to help her out. If the prince doesn't believe it, let him follow the High Court's investigation personally. That way, the young girl will at least die knowing why. Why not have a thorough trial? Catherine panicked. A walk-through with the High Court was a bloody affair. If Claire was sent there, she would suffer a fate worse than death. Yes, even in death, I wouldn't let her have it easy. The bed of nails, the searing pillar, having her ears and fingers cut off before being thrown into a pit of snakes. 72 methods of torture, spread across 5 subterranean levels. I wondered which level Claire would make it to. The wrongs Sarah suffered had to be paid for in blood, with every step she took down into that hell of torture. Catherine couldn't bear the thought of the child she had raised seeing such a scene. She dropped her mask of dignity and begged pitifully. But I had already compromised once. Julian couldn't possibly push me further. If you keep protecting him, with his spineless character, the only thing he's fit for is to be sent to the frontier to farm wasteland. Instead of wasting time kneeling and begging me, You should go teach your worthless son a lesson. Catherine, after all, was his first wife, and Julian had always respected her. It was the first time he had spoken to her so harshly. Humiliated, she didn't dare press her luck. The fourth prince was still sent to the high court by the emperor. I've given you your satisfaction. Are you happy now? Julian glared at me, his brow deeply furrowed with displeasure. I moved closer, pushing him down onto the desk, straddling him with the same impudence as the 15-year-old Chu Chiu. I'm not completely satisfied, but you protected me, so I'll have to make you satisfied. I had mastered all of Chu Chiu's little tricks, capturing her essence perfectly, about 5 parts similar, but always leaving him wanting more. Every time, Julian would be fulfilled, yet always feel that something was missing. That missing piece made him ache with longing. For me, and for Chu Chiu, his obsession only grew. In just 3 days, the once arrogant fourth prince had fallen ill. It was to be expected. Watching his beloved have her fingers sliced off, her skin peeled away, until she was nothing but a bloody mess, still reaching for him with a gory hand and crying, "Brother Connor, save me," how could the coddled prince not be terrified? To make matters worse, as Claire was dying, she cried out to the prince, "If we cannot be together in life, I will stay with you in death." The sight of that blood-soaked specter made the prince's legs go weak. He immediately ordered her body to be cremated and her ashes scattered in the river, to be done with it once and for all. Even so, the prince developed a high fever, and the imperial physicians were summoned 3 times. The doctors said he was suffering from extreme shock that had damaged his spirit. No one knew that the knife I used to cut Claire was laced with poison, and the prince had been contaminated when he held her. When one is in a state of extreme shock and mental instability, it induces hallucinations. Everything was part of my precise calculations. While he was lost in his paranoia, I didn't forget about his mother. Because the palace guards had negligently allowed the prince into my private chambers that day, I took the opportunity to eliminate several of Catherine's spies. When the bloody list of names was sent to her, I heard she was so angry her face turned green. When she was unhappy, I was happy. That evening, I ordered someone to send Claire's blood-soaked clothes to the Marquis's estate. The family is missing their daughter dearly. I shall grant them a keepsake. I heard the Marquis's wife coughed up blood from the shock, and the family, now a public laughingstock, was thrown into chaos. I sat cross-legged, cracking melon seeds, while Julian sighed incessantly. To think my son is so useless. It's more shameful than if someone had killed me. I gave a subtle signal, and these words spread throughout the palace. The Empress's quarters, in particular, heard them the most. Catherine threw another massive tantrum in her palace. A young attendant who came to pay her respects was punished by being forced to kneel simply for wearing a red rose. The virtuous and magnanimous Empress was starting to show her true colors. This was just the opening act. The real show was yet to come. Julian desperately searched for traces of Chu Chiu in me, addicted to my fearlessness. He practically lived in my palace. His grace, his favoritism, his attention, it was all mine. In a moment of passion, he nibbled my ear and whispered Chu Chiu's name. I turned his chin, forcing him to look at my face. "I am Consort Anya, the orphan girl Anya." He pressed his forehead against mine and laughed self-deprecatingly. "You're right. She was never as obedient as you. If Catherine had dared to call her a wicked person, she would have slapped her right in front of me. I wasn't that arrogant. The time I slapped Catherine, she had pointed at my swollen belly and, with a smile, tore into me with her fangs. You've killed so many people. I refuse to believe it won't come back to haunt your son. So what if you have him? Who knows if you'll even give birth, or what he'll be like if you do?" But the consequence of slapping her was that I was forced to kneel for half a day, and I miscarried. It was much later that I learned she had applied a blood-moving medicinal herb to her body, before she came dancing up to me that day. From the very beginning, her goal was to make me lose my child. My son died because of her scheming, so her son wouldn't get to live in peace. So what if he was closely protected? In the end, he was ruined by my hand. Tracing Julian's sharp brow, I couldn't find a shadow of the man he used to be. And her? Where did she go? Julian's body stiffened. He quietly pulled his hand out from under my pillow, turned his back to me, and said faintly, "It's late. Let's sleep." I couldn't sleep. I missed my little brother. When Julian rushed to the rescue with my secret message, I was surrounded in the prince's mansion by Catherine's brother and his troops. Catherine held my hidden younger brother in front of her, forcing me to surrender. Traitorous rebel. Who dies? You or him? Choose. The Chu family had been framed and wiped out, leaving only my brother and me. I bled and fought for Julian, first, to one day clear the Chu family's name, and second, so my brother could have a good life. He was only 7, just 3 years older than Prince Connor. While Prince Connor was being coddled like the apple of his parents' eye, ignorant of hardship, my brother had already resolved to fight tooth and nail to overturn the verdict against our family. He was determined to study relentlessly, enter the civil service, and become a pillar of support for me, his older sister. Even as a prisoner under Catherine's knife, he told me without a trace of fear, "Sister, you've done enough for me and for our family. If you don't leave, I won't live on alone." Catherine's brother stepped on my brother's back, and the sound of cracking bone nearly tore me apart. "If she leaves, I'll have you flayed, your tendons pulled, and hung from the city tower as a public spectacle." Seeing me hesitate to drop my sword, he twisted the arm my brother held behind his back, snapping it. The 7-year-old boy, his face pale with pain, still managed a weak smile for me. "It doesn't hurt, sister. I'm a man. I can take it." Crack. My brother's leg, the one he trained in martial arts, was stomped on and broken. Just as Catherine's blade was about to pierce his eye, I dropped my sword. But at the same moment, a sharp sword pierced my chest from behind. It was the very sister I had protected all along. That person is still in the palace now, quietly enjoying her wealth and status. It's time for her to pay back her debt. In my second month in the palace, an autumn banquet was held. Julian held my hand, seating me beside him. Catherine, forcing a proud expression, was already grinding her teeth with hatred. While Julian was drinking with his ministers, I secretly swapped my wine for water. Then, provocatively, I touched my lower abdomen. Yes, I was pregnant. Catherine's hand, holding her wine cup, turned white. After a few rounds of drinks, I offered to go for a walk. Julian just told me to protect myself well. I patted the sword at my side. With this, don't worry. The long unopened palace of lasting fortune was open. The reclusive concubine Linda was already waiting for me under the moonlight. When she saw me, she rushed over. "Are they still alive? What do you want?" I coolly pushed her hand away. "Kneel." Her expression froze. Meeting my icy gaze, she hesitated for a moment before weakly kneeling. "Greetings to your highness." I didn't tell her to rise, but sat before her looking down. "This palace of lasting fortune isn't as grand as your old courtyard. What, is Catherine not treating you well?" She gave a bitter smile. "I'm just a pawn. Without a child to secure my position, this is the best I can hope for. What do you want from me?" "I just want to know if my family is still alive." I didn't answer, just threw a packet of medicine at her. "Go visit the Empress's palace more often lately. You're all good sisters after all. Her precious son is so sick he can't even get out of bed for the palace banquet. How can he do without your comfort?" Her eyes lingered on the packet of medicine for a long time. Finally, with trembling hands, she grasped her own death warrant. "If I do this, will you release my mother and brother?" I stood up and walked away. "You're not qualified to ask." With her weakness in someone else's hands, what right did she have to bargain? Back then, only she had seen my brother's letter. The one who betrayed us could only have been her, Linda Chen. Blood for blood. What made her think she had the right to make deals with me? From the moment I sent her mother's and brother's personal effects to her, she was doomed to live in constant fear and turmoil until her death. On my way back to the banquet, I was stopped by consort Sophie. She looked at my face with a smile. "You look just like an old friend." I rolled my eyes. "Oh, I know. The emperor told me the day he asked me to be his consort. Just a stand-in for his first love. But hey, it's still a life of luxury as a favored consort. What do I have to complain about?" Her face turned pale, the words of discord she wanted to sow getting stuck in her throat. "Now is the perfect time for the first prince to shine. Shouldn't you seize the opportunity? The emperor is worried that none of his sons are up to the task. If you miss an opportunity like this, You'll never get another one. Compared to the Empress's hypocrisy, I find your smile much more sincere." Consort Sophie's eyes lit up, and she gently took my hand. With the fourth prince ill, the first prince made a dashing appearance in court. I used to be very fond of his mother. She was soft and gentle, with a faint smile, always following me around, calling me sister. She was thoughtful, graceful, and obedient. When I returned to the mansion covered in blood, she would always be waiting under the veranda to help me clean up and dress my wounds. The two people I trusted most in that household were Sophie, whom I had personally trained, and Linda, whom I had rescued from a pile of corpses. But in the end, Linda used my weakness to trade for wealth, and became the current concubine Linda. Sophie stabbed me in the back, ensuring the safety of herself and her son, and was later made consort Sophie. Neither of them would escape. Now that the fourth prince had shown weakness, consort Sophie, who had been biding her time for years, finally revealed her ambition based on the information I had given her. In court, the first prince steadily won over supporters, cornering the fourth prince. In the harem, consort Sophie openly allied with me, catching the empress completely off guard. "Thank you for the evidence, sister. Now that Minister Jiang is embroiled in a corruption scandal, he can't possibly support the fourth prince, even if he wanted to." Seeing my lack of response, she probed further. "It's just a pity that he's so tight-lipped. He didn't even implicate the fourth prince." I glanced at her sideways. Whether there's concrete evidence doesn't matter. The first prince understands the power of rumor. If all else fails, you can always create your own momentum. I remembered that today was the day the little girl was supposed to eat jerky, so I got up and headed for the prayer hall. The smile on consort Sophie's lips vanished, replaced by a cold, snake-like gaze that stuck to my back. "Want to use me as a weapon? We'll see who's the weapon and who's the wielder." The news of my pregnancy was kept under tight wraps. Julian surrounded me with layers of protection, determined to ensure the safety of both mother and child. He said he would do anything to keep us safe. I hid a smile and agreed that, of course, that was what I wanted. But a few days later, after concubine Linda came to my palace for a cup of tea, I started bleeding heavily and collapsed on the floor. When Julian arrived, the pool of blood was right at his feet. It probably reminded him of the day Chuchio miscarried. He had also found her in a pool of blood, holding her in his arms, having lost his unborn son. As he held me, his body trembled, and he kept begging, don't sleep, I'm here. The doctors are here. Just hold on a little longer. I'll stay with you." I did my best to imitate Chuchio's expression when she was injured, touching his face without saying a word, without uttering a single cry of pain. The memories overlapped, likely making the moment even more profound for him. When he learned that I had been given a large dose of saffron, which had completely damaged my body and made it impossible for me to ever have children again, Julian stormed off to Catherine's palace. Even though Linda kept her mouth shut, it wasn't hard to pry a few truths from the servants. Her Majesty the Empress has been summoning our mistress to her palace more frequently lately. Today, she was called over early in the morning for a secret 2-hour meeting. Before our mistress came to the palace of exquisite beauty, the Empress sent someone out of the palace. She said, "Go on, don't worry, I have your back. We beg your Majesty to seek justice for our mistress." Linda was very obedient, following my instructions to the letter. Julian kicked Linda to the ground. "Are you her dog? I've never seen such loyalty. If you're so loyal, why did you betray Chuchio back then? You worthless scum. You deserve to die." As Linda was being dragged away, she kept begging me for mercy. I knew what she was saying. She was saying she had done as I asked, and that I should spare her mother and brother. But I no longer had a brother. Why should she? After she was thrown into the cold palace, I sent her a grand gift. She loved to play the zither, so I had a lute made from her mother's bones. She loved to play the drums, so I had a small drum made from her brother's skin. She went mad, screaming and cursing me for being a heartless monster, for being untrustworthy and deserving of death. Halfway through her tirade, a figure in a black cloak appeared before her. "Me. You were poisoned with saffron and bled so much. Yet you can still come here. You are cruel, so cruel." I was never a kind person, and this wasn't the first day she knew it. I pulled her into my arms, took the hairpin from her hair, and slowly, pinprick by pinprick, disabled her. Then I dragged her for what felt like miles and threw her down a dry well. Before I left, I told her a truth that would ensure she would never rest in peace. I am not Chuchio's sister. Chuchio never had a sister. So if I have her skill with a blade and her mannerisms, what do you think that means? She must have figured something out, desperate for confirmation. But in such a deep well, in such a desolate cold palace, she could scream until she died, and no one would ever hear her. When I was tortured to death, cut by inches and my bones broken, my brother was forced to watch in the same hopeless way. He tasted that pain. All those executioners deserved to taste it too. Years ago, Linda's mother was sold to a brothel and nearly died from the abuse. It was I who stormed in and saved her. Her brother was useless in both literature and martial arts, a slave born to a prostitute. It was I who used the favor I'd earned by taking a sword for Julian to get him a job. But in the end, it was that mother and son who used fake news of my death to lure my brother to the capital. They betrayed me. They deserved to pay back everything they owed. Back then, it took the three of them, using every scheme and plot they could muster, to take Chuchio's life. But now, one is dead in the cold palace, the other two are at each other's throats after I drove a wedge between them, and I no longer have any weaknesses for them to exploit. Will I lose this time? When I returned to my palace, exhausted and still stained with blood, Julian was sitting by the bed, reading. He didn't seem to see the blood on me, just grabbed my cold hand, his voice full of fear. You can't get cold. Come here, let me warm you up. He held me tight in his arms, trying to make up for the other me on me. But no matter which me it was, I couldn't be happy. The companionship Chuchio wanted back then he didn't give, staying in Catherine's courtyard instead. The river of blood I wanted now, he also wouldn't grant, trying to minimize the situation. I went to kill someone. She deserved to die. Aren't you going to ask who? It doesn't matter. It wasn't that the killing didn't matter, just that the person who died didn't matter. I almost let myself be fooled by his deep affection and protectiveness. Almost. Because the instigator, the Empress, was forgiven by him. He stripped her of her power to manage the 6 palaces, and confined her to her quarters to recuperate. That was his idea of getting justice for me. When you're better, I'll make you an imperial consort. Don't cause any more trouble, all right? Trouble? After Linda's body was discovered, I sent her bloody hairpin to the Empress's palace as a get-well gift. I heard the hairpin still reeked of a corpse, and the Empress vomited all day. She complained to Julian, and he came to pacify me. I didn't answer, just snipped off a branch from the winter plum tree with a crack. What if I insist she pays for my child with her life? Sarah. He was reminding me that I was Sarah, the useless girl from the Marquis's house with no way out. That everything I had now he had given me. I should be obedient and pliable. It was a warm spring day, but I felt a chill. Did she die at Catherine's hands too? Did you protect her just like this? My direct question made Julian choke. I have important matters to attend to today. I'll see you tomorrow. He always tried to escape whenever Chuchio was mentioned. Because he felt guilty, because he had a guilty conscience, because he didn't dare face it. They say she drove her to her death. Julian's back stiffened, and his fierce gaze fell on my face. But I was fearless. Was one of me not enough? Do you need another one of me to die? Or maybe, you never loved her, and you never felt anything for me. Insolence. He had never been this angry, so angry he slapped me. I've spoiled you too much, made you so arrogant you don't know your place. Who do you think you are? Just a toy I keep for my amusement. From today on, you will stay in this palace and recuperate. You are not to go anywhere. He loved me for being wild and defiant. But he also hated that I wasn't obedient enough. Just like with Chuchio back then. He loved that she would give everything for him without a second thought. But he also thought Chuchio's hands were too bloody, that she was too fierce. So he preferred Catherine's dignity, Sophie's gentleness, and Linda's obedience. And with that he slowly, repeatedly, tortured Chuchio's heart. In reality, he only ever loved himself. I dropped the shears, watching Julian's retreating back, and fell silent. I gave you the knife, again and again. I gave you the chance to make amends. You were the one who didn't take it. From now on, you can't blame me. I was left to languish in my palace. For many days, I didn't see Julian. Everyone said Consort Anya was too arrogant, had displeased the Empress, and had now fallen from favor. With the consort out of favor and the Empress ill, no one was happier than Consort Sophie. She gained power over the 6 palaces, and her son, armed with evidence of the 4th prince's corruption, was making waves in the court. The 4th prince was repeatedly denounced by ministers, completely disappointing Julian. Finally, he stripped the 4th prince of his power and ordered him to recuperate. Catherine coughed up blood upon hearing the news and, weak as she was, requested an audience with Julian. That day, I flew a kite in the courtyard. A soaring eagle, so lifelike it seemed alive, danced in the sky above the palace. Julian stopped outside the Empress's palace and watched it for a long time. When he went inside, he had a huge fight with the Empress. The eagle was a birthday gift my younger brother had once shot down for Julian. He remembered my brother, and he remembered my brother saying, "Sister has nothing but you and me. She would risk her life for us, so we must protect her with our lives." My brother did. He didn't. It was a raw wound in his heart, and the Empress had just poured salt on it, naturally failing to save their precious son. Seeing my downfall, the Marquis's family, who had been ostracized by the nobility, began to take advantage. The Marquis sent me a letter, condescendingly ordering me, "Seek formal recognition from the family as soon as possible. Your father will send a distant female relative into the palace to help you secure the Emperor's favor. The child she bears will be raised by you, giving you something to rely on. Only by holding tight to the Emperor's favor can you and the An family have a better future." A dying grasshopper still trying to kick up a fuss. Since he was asking for death, I was more than happy to help him along. Seeing that the Empress and Consort Sophie were now sworn enemies, there was no need for me to hide any longer. And so, that letter ended up on Julian's desk. What emperor would tolerate having his bed and his heirs controlled by his ministers? Especially when his favored consort was so easily bullied the moment she fell from grace. Overnight, the An family was implicated in a rebellion plot. Their assets were seized, and they were exiled. It happened in the blink of an eye. See, if the emperor wants to stand up for you, it's as simple as a wave of his hand. He just wasn't willing to. Julian was once again reminded of my helpless isolation. After ignoring me for a month, he came to see me again. "You've learned your lesson. Now you need to learn to be more obedient." My sword had been taken away, so I could only pick at my nails. "Didn't you say you liked my wildness and rebellious spirit?" He saw I could still banter with him, and his anger dissipated. The palace is not a place for fighting and killing. There are many ways to protect yourself. I will give them to you, but you have to be good. I pouted. "Unless you give me a child to replace the one I lost." "What's so difficult about that? There's a ready-made one with the Empress Dowager." A sickly prince, as thin as a cat, was brought before me. He was so timid he tried to hide behind people, not looking like a prince at all. His nanny repeatedly apologized. "Forgive us, Your Highness. The 5th prince is not well, so he's a bit timid. This child's mother died when he was born, and he had been raised by the Empress Dowager. But she was often away from the palace, so he fell into Catherine's hands. He spent 8 out of 10 months of the year sick. But he was, after all, still alive. And he had, after all, fallen into my hands." I rose with a smile, my face showing a tenderness I had never displayed before. "Come here, let me have a good look at what my son looks like." Give Julian a child? Sarah's body wasn't suitable, and I wasn't foolish enough to place my own weakness in his hands. Besides, I couldn't wait any longer. A ready-made one would do just fine. Without a noble family backing me, I had only Julian, and he didn't suspect me. My newfound son naturally got the best tutors and the finest living quarters. Even Julian, when he spent time with me, would often play chess, paint, and occasionally plant flowers with the well-behaved Prince Ryan. Seeing me rise higher and higher, and my son begin to show his talents, Consort Sophie grew restless. The 1st prince became increasingly close with the ministers, even showing a ruthless desire to eliminate the 4th prince. He even incited the officials to pressure Julian to name a crown prince. The emperor was in his prime. Being pushed by his son to name a successor early was already a taboo. But then he had to go and attack my son over a trivial matter. Consort Sophie's elaborate plans for her son came to an abrupt end, just one step from the finish line. The first prince was accused of factionalism, harming his siblings, and having a malicious heart. He was banished to his fiefdom and forbidden to return to the capital without permission. All of this, from the moment I encouraged Consort Sophie to let the first prince shine, was a foregone conclusion. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. The opportunistic ministers, sensing a change in the wind, came to curry favor with me. I ignored them all. But during tea with the ministers' wives, I casually mentioned the former Marquis of Anne's family. Perhaps their daughter had a thin fate, severing their familial ties. Combined with what I had done at the Marquis's estate before returning to the palace, it didn't take long for someone to guess my intentions. The Anne family's son couldn't bear the hardships of exile and jumped into a river. His body was eaten by fish, and only a skeleton was recovered. Having to bury his own son, the old Marquis couldn't take it. He had a fall and was left paralyzed in bed. The Marchioness was now like an old servant, working day and night for a scrap of food. They were alone, with no end to their suffering in sight, a truly tragic state. They finally remembered they had another daughter and, full of regret, tried to ask about me through others. They were met with cold laughter. The Emperor's favorite consort? Is that someone you can ask about? You'd better give up any ideas of clinging to her. I was roasting jerky again, the best, most fragrant jerky. My son asked me, Mother, does it still hurt? I touched my chest. It doesn't hurt anymore. Sarah was no longer in pain. The one who hurt was Chuchio. Unexpectedly, someone used my supposed cruelty and lack of filial piety to attack me. When I was about to be named imperial noble consort, an official impeached me, claiming my character was unworthy of the title. Julian was furious. I advised him, I don't care about being a consort or not. As long as I have you and Ryan with me, that's enough. Is it really enough? Consort Sophie arrived with a smile, followed by the Empress, who hadn't been seen in a long time. The two women, whose sons were both disgraced, had joined forces again. Is the consort truly the daughter of the Anne family? The question struck at my very core. Of course not. My direct answer made them both frown. I continued, I'm an orphan. Didn't you know? Consort Sophie maintained her benevolent facade, but produced evidence intended to be my death warrant. But this all proves you are not an orphan, but a descendant of a traitor, the Chu family. Julian squeezed my hand so tightly it hurt, his eyes filled with suspicion. A descendant of the traitorous Chu family? Are you? Catherine sighed with regret. Back then, the concubine was discovered to be a traitor's descendant, which is why she had no choice but to jump into the lake in the Empress's garden. I never thought she had such a beautiful sister. What a pity. Her words dripped with pity, but her face couldn't hide her triumphant glee. They probably thought that with their combined forces, I was doomed. Where did this evidence come from? Consort Sophie smiled sweetly. A maid from concubine Linda's palace gave it to me before she killed herself. It's all proof that you, my dear sister, manipulated her into using the Empress's hand to kill your own child. Sister, do you have anything else to say? Julian's face was terrifyingly dark. I knew he was suppressing his rage, waiting for my explanation. So I spread out the letters and showed them to Julian one by one. Your Majesty, whose handwriting do you think this is? Julian's eyes narrowed. Unable to restrain himself any longer, he slapped Consort Sophie hard across the face. The Empress was stunned. Your Majesty, you must have hit the wrong person. The one who did evil was clearly the consort. Julian looked down at her, his eyes filled with disappointment. The Empress is not well. You should return to your palace and rest. We will pretend you were not here today. After all their years as husband and wife, he was still protecting her, even at a time like this. But having finally gotten a chance for revenge, how could Catherine let it go? She led a group of concubines to kneel before Julian. I am the head of the harem, and it is my duty to advise you. To have a traitor's descendant by your side is a threat to the empire. For the sake of the nation, for your Majesty, I implore you to execute the last of the Chu clan. Consort Sophie, clutching her face, tearfully echoed the sentiment. Chu Qiu's death was disgraceful. I fear the Chu family harbors resentment and has ulterior motives for staying by your majesty's side. It is a threat to the state. Julian had never witnessed the joint attack they launched against Chu Qiu back then. But today, he was seeing their relentless persecution of me, Sarah, with his own eyes. If your majesty does not believe me, I have also brought confessions from the Yin family. That Sarah was timid and withdrawn, barely daring to speak in front of people. How could she be like the consort, so decisive and reckless? The Chu family woman has merely taken over Sarah's body to deceive your majesty. Please, your majesty, think carefully. The concubines of the 6 palaces bowed in unison, pressing for my death. I calmly brushed off my sleeves and couldn't help but laugh as I looked at Julian. What do we do? Do you die or do I? Everyone was shocked, glaring at me with fury. Consort, how dare you? The Empress was even more impatient. Your Majesty, are you still going to indulge her and protect her at a time like this? Then what do you think I should do, Empress? A cold, icy smile touched Julian's lips as he sat down on a stone bench. The Empress gave me a sharp, triumphant smile. A traitor's descendant should, naturally, be beheaded and put on public display. Julian nodded, as if seriously considering it. Then he waved his hand. Men, drag her away. Behead her and put her on public display. The Empress and consort Sophie exchanged a look of triumphant glee. But the next moment, Eunuch Li's men dragged away consort Sophie instead. Consort Sophie was aghast. The gentle, smiling mask she always wore was now a mess of terror. Insolence. You're supposed to arrest the consort. What are you doing arresting me? The Empress was equally bewildered. Your Majesty, what is the meaning of this? Julian looked down at them as if they were clowns. Consort Sophie just said that those letters were given to her by concubine Linda's maid before she killed herself, and that the handwriting is identical to the consort's. Based on that handwriting, she presented it as proof that the consort is a traitor's descendant. But what consort Sophie doesn't know is that during the years the consort was lost, she never learned to read or write. So how could she know how to write? Everyone was stunned. The Empress quickly tried to cover. The consort's calligraphy and paintings have been circulated. How can you say she can't write? Your Majesty must have been deceived by her. For the first time, Julian looked at Catherine with disgust. Because that is my handwriting. They were struck dumb, as if by lightning. I then explained with a smile, His Majesty dotes on me. He knows I struggle with writing, and that I'm a hopeless student. He feared I would be laughed at for being uncultured, so he often used his left hand to write some silly poems for me to pass off as my own. Others might not know, but consort Sophie often visited my palace. It wouldn't have been difficult for her to take a couple of calligraphy books. She just didn't know that the writing wasn't mine. Which means these letters couldn't have come from me either. A month ago, when Julian was practicing his calligraphy again, 2 books went missing. That day, only consort Sophie had come to visit me for tea. I had joked at the time that perhaps the consort and His Majesty were of one mind, loving both him and his handwriting. Julian had even teased me then for being jealous. Consort Sophie was terrified. No matter how much she pleaded her innocence, her fate was sealed. She was sent to the cold palace. The Empress collapsed to the ground, knowing her time was up. Julian took my hand and walked past the crowd, back to my palace. He didn't even spare a glance for the Empress behind him. I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so soft on her. He held me in his arms, his body trembling slightly. I knew what he was thinking about. The day Chu Qiu died, everyone was tight-lipped, leaving only the simple explanation that she had jumped into the lake in the Empress's garden and drowned. Chu Qiu was afraid of water, terrified of it. She would never have jumped into a lake unless they had pushed her to the absolute brink. But what he didn't know was that drowning was a kinder fate than what I endured. I suffered through 5 of the 7 levels of the dungeon's tortures before I finally stopped breathing. And all the while, my little brother was forced to watch as they flayed my skin and pulled my tendons. The profound pain surged up again, but he was still just using me to find solace for himself. You protected me today. That's good enough. He held me tighter. He was capable of protecting me, but he had never protected Chu Qiu. He was in agony, filled with guilt. But he no longer had the courage or determination to get to the bottom of it for anyone. Once again, I was utterly disappointed. In reality, he couldn't protect me either. From start to finish, I was the only one protecting myself. The letters Sophie had were real. It was a weakness I had intentionally left behind. Sarah, indeed, could not imitate Julian's handwriting. But Chuchio certainly could. After consort Sophie's sudden death, the first prince was immediately banished to his fiefdom, stripped of everything, never to be a threat again. The fourth prince lost the support of the Jiang family, and the ailing empress could no longer help him. He could only live with his tail between his legs. As the imperial noble consort, I became the true victor of the harem. During a break, I went to see consort Sophie. She sat on the veranda, her hair disheveled. When she saw me, her eyes gleamed with malice. I grabbed her chin, my voice cold. "I'm not going to kill you, don't be afraid. Because I want you to worry about your son and his faraway fiefdom every single day. To constantly guess and live in terror of which day he will die at my hands. Just like my brother, dying without a complete corpse." For such a ruthless person, Sophie actually knelt on the ground and repeatedly kowtowed to me, admitting her wrongs. "And don't even think about killing yourself. The moment you die, I'll send your son to join you. And you know I won't let him die easily." She broke down, crying and begging hysterically. But I turned my back on her, a cruel, satisfied smile on my face as I left. Let this terror, this fear, twist inside her like a knife every day, leaving her in a state where she can neither live nor die. It seemed like I had won, but not yet. When I took the fourth prince to see the Empress Dowager, she was fiddling with her prayer beads and sighed. "I have done everything I promised you. When will you deliver on your promise to me?" My rise to this point, every smooth step, was thanks to the Empress Dowager's silent support from behind the scenes. Even Sarah's shattered soul was reassembled by the abbot of the Grand Temple at her request. I am not an ungrateful person. I handed a letter to the Empress Dowager. "One last time, I must trouble you, your majesty." On the way back to the palace, the fifth prince asked me, "Mother, if you wanted a son, there are plenty in the palace. Why did you choose the most useless one, me?" The blazing sun made my eyes water. I held back a sob and said, "Because you and I are fated to be together." But he didn't know that my bones, pinned by the soul-suppressing pearl, were supposed to have been thrown into the lake. It was his mother, the concubine the Empress Dowager had placed in the prince's mansion, who was always at odds with me, who secretly swapped me out. She buried me just outside the mass grave and planted a peach tree next to it as a marker. "If he searches for you relentlessly, to clear your name and seek revenge, I will bring him to you. The peach tree will be the proof." But Julian, for the sake of power, for the sake of his newly acquired title of crown prince, and to avoid gossip in his household, suppressed my death and the injustice done to the Chu family. No one came looking for me. I had known long ago that he had abandoned me. "My dear consort, come here. I've painted a picture for you, come and see." Julian's eyes were full of affection as he reached out to me from afar. I smiled and took his hand. The person in the painting had a face like a peach blossom, with a hint of a smile that was both defiant and sharp. It was me, and yet it wasn't. "I only have you now. You must stay with me until we are old and gray." The sunset burned like fire, making his eyes glow red. He seemed so sincere, so I replied with equal sincerity, "All right." But just half a month later, when the state oracle declared that I was a demon possessing Sarah's body, he once again hid behind the oracle without hesitation. Whether it's true or not, let the state oracle perform the ritual. It will put my mind at ease and yours too. The long-ill empress stood by Julian's side, staring at me with a dark expression. Using only her lips, in a way only we could understand, she signaled to me, "You are going to die at my hands again." This so-called state oracle was the same one who had placed the soul-suppressing pearl on my bones 15 years ago. Now he was being brought back to utterly destroy me, body and soul. But Catherine, a person doesn't fall in the same place twice. I gave a faint smile and nodded at Julian. Yes, this way, we can all be at ease. The oracle's talisman was placed on my body. The 5-flavored true fire passed before my face. The pain was searing. Through it all, I kept my eyes on Julian, a smile on my face. He felt so guilty he couldn't even meet my gaze. Looking back on this life, my biggest mistake was huddling together for warmth with an equally helpless Julian when I was at my most vulnerable. I risked my life for him, but he didn't even have the courage to speak up for me. My poor brother, his bones sunk in a river, never to be reunited with me. After the long ceremony was over, the Empress's face went pale with shock. How can this be? I collapsed to the ground, exhausted from the day's ordeal, and stared at her coldly. What did you expect? For me to vomit blood and die on the spot, as you predicted? As soon as the words left my mouth, Julian, his face deathly pale, violently coughed up a mouthful of blood and collapsed. At that exact moment, the white jade I carried in my sleeve, which held Sarah's residual soul, trembled. Perfect. I had borrowed the power of the true dragon to reconstruct Sarah's soul. Daring charlatan! How dare you attempt to harm the Emperor? Seize him. The Empress Dowager rushed in, followed by the real state oracle. The Empress had used a fake Taoist priest to harm the Emperor. The Empress Dowager immediately had her thrown into the cold palace. This was my plan. One stone, two birds. Using their own power against them, allowing both the Empress Dowager and me to get what we wanted. Julian lay on the bed, his face ashen, unable to speak. I knew he was on his deathbed, so I told him a story. The charlatan who borrowed your draconic energy was the one who placed a soul-suppressing pearl on Chuchio's bones over a decade ago. Chuchio died, but not completely. She became a lonely ghost, waiting desperately for her husband to come for her. But in the end, the one who came for her was a young girl named Sarah. Julian's eyes went wide. And do you know why that charlatan was willing to risk his head to help me take your life? Because if I offered my blood as a sacrifice, the spell would backfire and his soul would be scattered. In this world, you only know how much a slap hurts when it hits your own face. I don't want anyone's regret. I want them to feel the pain viscerally, in their own bodies. Including Julian. Julian stared at me, his expression a complex mess. How does it feel to die at the hands of the noble lady, your proper wife, the one you respected most? It must be very painful. Do you have any idea how much it hurt me when I realized you had betrayed me, time and time again? Or how much it hurt when you abandoned me, again and again? Julian's eyes were bloodshot as he stared at me unblinkingly. Are you looking at Sarah, or at Chuchio? It doesn't matter. They are both me. The only thing that matters is that you are not worthy of either. The Empress Dowager will take good care of you. After all, she raised you for so many years, and you personally had her real son killed. She hates you more than anyone. The Empire? Yes, the Empire is what you love most. Let's give it to my son. After all, I helped you conquer half of it. You ruled one half. The other half will be ruled by me. I stood up and left, and never went to see him again. It was the Empress, Catherine, in the cold palace whom I visited most often. Every time I went, I brought gifts. First her father, who had schemed for her. Then her brother, who had backed her. Finally, her mother, who had given her the abortifacient that killed my son. For each one, I did as her brother had once done to me, putting them through all 72 methods of torture, one by one, until they finally breathed their last. At first, Catherine was filled with hatred, screaming and crying, wanting nothing more than to kill me. Then came the fear, the submission, the pathetic begging for me to stop. I did not accept, and continued to humiliate her. Finally, she was driven mad. She tried to grab a guard's sword to kill herself, but was stopped. Take good care of her every day. If anyone dares to let her die, I will execute their entire clan. Her family was buried in the cold palace, keeping her company day and night. Catherine couldn't die, but she couldn't live either, just like me when I was hanging from that peach tree. Day after day, she would have to endure. With my revenge complete, my son became the new emperor. He treated me with the utmost respect and at my suggestion, officially cleared the Chu family's name. With no more worries, I, the youngest Empress Dowager in history, had nothing but endless blessings. I held banquet after banquet. The world said I couldn't stand the loneliness and loved extravagant feasts. I paid them no mind and continued to do as I pleased. Until, at a palace banquet, I saw the pregnant wife of the Marquis of Rongan's heir, and my face lit up with joy. The Marquis of Rongan's title was hereditary, and the family was known for its upright character. They rarely took concubines unless they had trouble producing an heir. The heir and his wife were childhood sweethearts, deeply in love. Though their child was only 5 months along in the womb, they had already prepared everything it would need for its entire life. The extent of their doting was clear. A family like this was truly wonderful. The young lady of the house of Rong-un, come here. You look so joyful. I wish to give you a little something. The young woman glanced at her husband and, reassured by his nod, slowly approached me. I took out the white jade I had kept hidden for so long and pressed it into her hand. Take this to ensure a safe pregnancy. Wear it on your person every day. She accepted it with a smile and thanked me. Watching her walk away, I thought of the girl under the peach tree who ate jerky with me. I've found you a good family for your next life. You absolutely must be happy. The end.